Well, ladies and gentlemen, the earlier you get a wee promotion in your career, the better, and who better to ask than Jordan Brown up at Peterhead? But we've got the second best man because we've already had him on. Michael Tidser, have you and the lads got over the Hibs result yet?
Listen, it was a great result for the club. I said that at the time, probably the biggest result in the club's history, especially since we came into the league. So it was a great day. But listen, I said it straight after the game, and I was always like this: a player, you need to just park it. And our bread and butter's a league, and we've got off to a good start on that. So more than happy with how it's went pre-season. But the league results will probably please me more, to be honest with you.
You were on open goal in May 2023, just after you'd been announced as the manager. You were on with Slaney hosting it, wasn't it, himself that time, and Lewis Toshney there as well. Slaney spoke about how much of an eye-opener it was, and that was very early days, you being the manager. Now you've had a season and a wee bit. How many more eye-openers, if you can count them, have you had?
Listen, the hardest part for me is probably playing and managing. I actually had a wee chat with Gary Naismith over the weekend before the game, and he'd mentioned the same thing when he was at East Fife. But listen, I love playing as well, and I love being in the environment of match day. Obviously, it's slightly different training days. I get the managerial head on sort of thing and oversee things with great staff behind me. But in terms of your question, no, listen, I wouldn't change it, but I feel like it's the next step now. First 6 months, it took me a wee bit of time to adapt. But as the season went on, and obviously it was my second kind of a summer where I had to try and recruit. There was boys gone, I was trying to get boys in. And listen, it's difficult. It's really difficult, especially when you're part-time as well, because you've only got a certain amount of hours with the players. But all the work kind of gets done behind the scenes, and then it's when we train properly, and then when match day comes, that's when I want to see the boys come alive. And to be fair, over the past however long it's been, over a year now, the boys have been great, and as long as I can keep trying to drive their standards, and they can do their talking on the park, which always helps, and I can always try and be there and guide them, especially younger lads during the game, in terms of how we want to play, and just the experience of I've played loads of games now, and helping them in different ways on the park as well as off it.
I want to ask you actually about recruitment because, well, as we were speaking before it, I had the Aldershot manager Tommy Bidrington, and he actually worked with Ross Wilson before he came to Rangers at Huddersfield, so he got a very good understanding of recruiting players and bringing them in and such. See, because you're on the pitch and you know the demands of the players and you do quite physically know what needs to be done on the pitch, does that give you an edge or a wee bit of a different look on recruitment, if you understand where I'm coming from?
Of course, because sometimes I've signed players based on playing against them. Which helps because I've played against them. I know firsthand their capabilities, what they can do, and their strengths. Being on the park with my own teammates as well, the boys know the way I want to try and play it. Listen, football's not as easy as getting it down and passing, and if that was that easy, we'd all be at the top. So there's times where you need to, grind your teeth and, dig out results. But being on the park, I see it's funny because I speak to Jordy, my assistant, a lot about this, especially at half time. Sometimes I feel something different on the pitch, and he'll say something different off the pitch, which is why he's there, which is why I trust him in my life and why I trust him with decisions when I'm playing. We obviously speak during the game, but I think being on the park is definitely an advantage. I think so anyway, because even when I'm at the side, if I've been injured or maybe not played myself for whatever reason, it feels different. I feel like I always still want to be on the pitch helping them. Obviously the last couple of weeks I've been injured, but I've come back in the last 2 games, and I feel like I've been a positive influence in the group, which, listen, for me, I need to perform as well. It's as simple as that. It's in my standards. I've always tried to keep high standards, and I know when I've been off it, when I've done my bit for the team, and as I say, the last 2 results, not because I've come in, I just feel like having myself in there, as I say, with my voice and my understanding of the game, so to speak, probably helps. More boys around about me than you would probably think, sort of thing. So that's definitely a positive.
I'm going to just jump straight in and do some James English style, take us right back to the start. Of course, we're actually a lot closer geographically than I think we realised first, but tell us about where you come from, your footballing history, if you like, up until you ended up with an alright deal when you were a youngster.
No, so I was, it's funny because I was talking about this the other day to one of my mates. I actually didn't, like my kids now, my 2 boys now have been in boys club at Drumsagard, obviously where we're from. They've been in boys club since they were 4 or 5 years of age, but my route was slightly different. I grew up in Duke Street, Denniston, and I didn't join a boys club till I was like 9. I was just out playing my pals, my brothers. Probably, I know it's changed, society's changed now, and kids probably don't go out and play as much anymore for whatever reasons. But I was out morning and night playing football, and it wasn't until one of my pals in Denison says, "Do you play for anybody?" And I was like, "No." And he said, "Do you want to come to Bosco Juniors," which was in Easterhouse? And I said to my mum, she's like, "That's fine as long as you can get picked up, dropped off." That's what it was like back in the day. So his dad used to take me, and I was only there a year. And then within that year, I'd been in at Hibs, Hearts. No, Hearts. Hibs, Aberdeen. I'd went out to Rangers for a wee bit, believe it or not. I'd actually went down to Leeds. Me and Barry Bannon, we were only young, and we went down there.
And he's not come back up that way
no,
since,
no, he's kind of stayed and kind of run about that area. He's had a brilliant career, to be fair, but we went down it like, I must have just been before I was turning 10, went down with scouts, had our dinner and all that stuff. But it was all new to me because, I just, as I say, I just played in the streets. And do you know what? I actually thought that was a great grounding, as daft as it sounds. I think now, even now, I take my kids' team on a Monday night, 2014s, and I don't think you get many street players kicking about anymore. I think it's all structured and how they want to play, and elite players that just kind of play off the cuff. And as I say, street players. I grew up, ironically, Snoddy only stayed 10 minutes from me.
Aye.
And 5 minutes, and we used to play a lot down a place called the Rapper just off Church Street, and it was all proper players. They were all good street players that could handle a cell, and it was brilliant. Some of the games we had was amazing. And again, he's went on to have a brilliant career, but he didn't change the way he played. He was a few years older than me, but he was exactly the same, playing for Leeds and, you know, having a brilliant career, Norwich, and moved on, West Ham, Scotland. But he was still the same player he was when he was 13, 14. That's the way I seen it for him. But within that year, it was the last game for Bosco, and it was a cup final, and I done really well. And the scout, Eddie McCulloch at the time, who's still, you know, he's still gone. Eddie was brilliant for me. Again, because I grew up with just my mum, my brothers, my 4 brothers. My mum couldn't drive at the time, so Eddie was a big help. And once I was in at Celtic, I had to go through all the trials and stuff. And then that was me for 10 up to I was just before I was 20. So great grounding, great experience at, well, the club I support, really.
Well, Dom Thomas, of course, you'll know him. He pretty much echoed that statement about, you know, street football, really, and, you know, just guys kicking the ball about. He was very vocal publicly, I think, when he was at Kilmarnock as well, and then he came on to this as well and said the exact same thing about how it's all too structured, and even the coaches a bit too much ego in them. They want to win more than they want to develop the players, whereas football should just be trial and error, you know, playing by yourself. When it comes to you in training, I don't know how much of maybe an impact you've got in the younger groups here at this club. Do you alter how you train the players or how you train with the players in a way of more street ball, if you know what I mean?
As I say, players now are different. But I feel players are mollycoddled, and, you know, even some boys in my team, like, you need to be careful what you say sometimes, because they can go into a sulk and think you're picking on them. When I kind of eventually started, when I left Celtic and I went into the real football, as we call it, in Morton, well, Sweden first, but then Scottish football in Morton, that kind of opened my eyes up big time. For going to Lennoxtown to then going down to kind of a partly where we used to train. In fact, we used to train all over the place at Morton, and it was proper men. That's one thing I realised. And I was so used to trying to get on the ball and play and pass and move. And at Celtic, where it was, the environment was top class, at our kind of a level sort of thing in the country, so to speak. And then when I went to Championship football at 19, it blew me away for the first 6 months. In the trenches, you're bang on. And it took me 6 months, and people were running off me. I was got to try and get the ball off the goalkeeper, for goal kicks. I remember big Colin Stewart, who's now at Rangers, he's the first team goal at Rangers, big shadder. I think we were getting beat 2-0 and I was trying to get the ball off him for the box, and he told me to do one. Do you know what I mean? And that's when I realised that, okay, I need to try and adapt my game now in terms of the other side of the game, which probably took me a lot longer than I wanted, but because I was so used to passing and moving and playing, again, I just had to understand the game and as I say, what real football was like.
Well, we even said before as well that I was very excited to ask you about your stint at Östersund, if I got that right.
Östersunds.
Same thing. That's the way the Swedes say it. That's how I got it down on the internet, actually. You were there at quite an interesting point at that club, of course. Football geeks and nerds like myself probably know it through Graham Potter went there, and well, ultimately he went there because of the partnership with Swansea. So I'm going to presume you weren't the only native English speaker at that club at that point.
No, it's funny because what actually happened when I got released for Celtic, I actually went into Hamilton for a couple of weeks. Wee Billy Reid took me in there. He kind of always liked me, so to speak. So I went in there for 2 weeks, and I loved it. To be fair, it was really, really good. And he was frank with me, and he was honest. And he says, "Look, Tids, I think Jamesy, there were 2 Jameses were still at McCarthy and McCarthy, and you still had Ali Crawford coming through, Jordan Kilpatrick. They were all kind of around about my age." And he's like, "You need to go and play games, because you've just come out of academy now. It's time to really step up," sort of thing. And it was him that put me in touch with the chairman of Ostersons, Daniel Kinberg, his name was. And just like that, I went out, flew out with my agent. Lee Mako was a manager who used to play for Hearts, Hibs. He was down at Newcastle as well. So he was a manager. Well, he was a player, and then he got the manager's job. So that kind of helped me as well. And to be fair, it was the best decision I ever made, especially at that time, because listen, I won't bullshit you. I was heartbroken leaving Celtic after so many years. Listen, regardless, I wasn't good enough to play for the first team. I knew that the quality through that first team was incredible. Running about the years with Gordon Strachan, and it just came as a bit of a shock, because it was like my full kind of a childhood growing up. But that's what happens, and sometimes you need to step out into the real world. So going over to Sweden for, I think all in it was about 6 or 7 months. I was living myself, as I say, different language, different culture, and it kind of opened my eyes up. And as I say, it was probably a brave move to make at that age. But as I say, it stood me in good stead, and I got a wee taste for first team football, and it made me. I feel like it made me a better player when I came back, albeit it was only a short period.
I want to then actually touch back on how you said about heartbroken leaving Celtic. A lot of people like myself don't ever get anywhere near that level yet. We're always very critical of I mean, look at Ben Doak, for example. I mean, look at the flack he took for leaving Celtic, where he would presumably develop to go down to Liverpool, where he's already on the chopping block. I think they're already looking to punt him. But people do disregard the fact that you're getting into world-class facilities and world-class coaches, and that whole environment was all very structured to have you playing at a top level. How much then of an impact did all of those factors have on you as a young player, as in maybe how different would things have been if you had came to a club like Kelty Hearts, where you would presumably get a better shot at playing first-team football and you would be toughened up?
No doubt, it's a great question. Sometimes I often think back, if I try to think of an example. You mentioned there, James McCarthy, for example. He got his debut at 15, 16 and probably played 200 games by the time he was the same age as me, because he actually came out of Celtic for a bit and then went to Hamilton. And he'd played 200 games by the time I got released. And the difference in his growth from me trying to then go and make a career for myself out of Celtic to him then getting a move down the road to Wigan, sort of thing. So coming through, listen, it's all well and good. And by the way, now that I'm older and I'm a manager and I speak to Celtic and Rangers in terms of trying to get players out on loan, not so much me, but there was boys kind of a wee couple of years older than me, like Si went down south. I remember Ryan Conroy going out. I remember Michael McGlinchey going out. Mark Muller, Paul Caddis, they all went out on loan. And I would say that to any young player now, go out and experience first team football, because you get the perks of training, good facilities, plenty of balls, kit's always there for you, lunch is beautiful, you know what I mean, food's top notch, but it's no real life. And it's probably a blessing in disguise that when I did eventually get released, I was still young enough to, at 19, I wasn't 20, 21, I hadn't played anything, still young enough to then go and try and carve a career out for myself.
See, you were also in the Scotland youth ranks as well, and you were coming up with guys like James Forrest, Lee Griffiths, Paul Hanlon, guys who are very established, very well known. See, even at that level, and I know the assumption is, well, they wouldn't be there if they weren't that good, but was it very clear? Is their talent very clear and very abundant even at that age as well? Like, are you not surprised into the careers they've went on and had?
No, listen, touching on the lads there, again, they were all probably playing, maybe no, well, Jamesy came through at 17, and I remember actually his first Scotland trip, we went away to Hungary, and he hadn't been in any of the Scotland 19 squads at the time. And then he played the first game, I don't think he played. Second game, he scored a hat-trick. And I remember like your Johnny Russells, wee Flecky was there, Paul Hanlon, all these lads all gone, he's a proper player, him. And he's proved that his career's honestly outstanding. How sometimes he gets a wee bit of stick for this. I've touched on this before in the past. And I'm not just saying that because kind of I came through with me, but same kind of my age. He's a top player, and he's a lovely boy as well, and how he lives his life and the levels he's reached for Celtic and some of the big moments he's had for Celtic should never be forgot about in my eyes. But all the other lads as well, they all probably terms of Johnny Russell, was playing early.
Aye.
Paul Hanlon got his chance early. I know Flecky had a wee sniff done and he moved on. But no, they were all good players. They were all really good players. Griffiths another one. And do you know what? It was just, I wish you could go back now when we've all had a kind of we're all older now, but go back now and know what we know now and try and implement it for your country at the time. But we did, to be fair, we qualified to then play England, and then I got left out of that squad. So that was around about the time I got released to Celtic. Then I didn't get in the Scotland squad, and I'd been in every squad up to the kind of a Euro sort of thing. So that was probably one of the reasons why I wanted to just get away and as you touched on, go to Sweden and clear my head, and then, as I say, try and carve a career for myself.
Did you think the Armageddon was coming there then? You've had a couple of bad runs in a row there, and then was it at that age, do you think you're a bit more susceptible to thinking, oh God, I'm getting released for Celtic, I'm not playing for Scotland, or were you in a wee bit of a frenzy, or were you quite level-headed?
No, I was, as I say, because it was all I'd ever known. Know that you think, as I said to you, touched on it, you don't think I'm going to play for Celtic, but you don't realise the world out there after you leave a club, if that makes sense, because I'd been there for nearly 10 years. And it was, I remember going on holiday with my pals. I think we went to Ayia Napa, and I remember having a brilliant time, but also in the back of my mind thinking, is my career done? Like, genuinely, I left Leonardstown in tears, actual tears coming down my eyes. I drove down the hill and I thought, what am I going to do now? But do you know what? There was always something in me that I wanted to prove that I could go and have a career, regardless, irrespective of what level it is. I wanted to make sure that I could go and have a career, and luckily enough, I'm still in the game now at 34, and as I say, now I'm a manager as well. So sometimes it's, you just don't know what's out there. But, I'd like to think I was resilient at that age enough to say, no, because plenty of boys just down tools or maybe go juniors and then fall away. I gave it my all, probably more as I got a wee bit older at Morton. Like, I dedicated my life to try to be a good professional. Always looked after myself. I only drank at certain times, ate the right food and stuff. And I always think that, you reap rewards of that as you get a wee bit older.
Yeah, you were at Morton and you almost coexisted with Alan Moore, who was your manager for most of that. See, now that you are a manager yourself, they almost relate to him a bit more. Do you feel sorry for him in certain ways as well?
It's funny because I spoke to Murray a couple of weeks ago, and he was, at the time, Murray's mental. He's mental. But I loved him. He played me. I think he made me captain at 2021. And I ended up signing a new deal. And I done well for him. I think we nearly went up that year to the Premier League. But Murray was first class. Him and Martin McNally, ex-Celtic player. They two were great for me. That it was tough at times because Nally was probably more Nally than the gaffer be Murray at the time. Nally was on me a lot, but again, he was teaching me what it takes to be a player at any level. And I used to like moan and groan and fucking he doesn't like me and this and that. Am I allowed to swear, by the way?
Aye, go for it. It's your show, Michael. It's your
Sorry,
show.
mate. I just
That's all right.
But Nally was on me a lot, and Murray was a wee bit more lenient. But as I say, over the 2-3 years I was with him, I think we worked both for each other. And then that's when I ended up getting my move down south. And Murray's done well. He's floated about. He's a good guy. He's a good football guy. He loves it. And I'm glad to see he's back in at Camelin now. And he'll always have that enthusiasm for football.
After an alright wee stint at Morton, you'd end up getting down to England, and I think a debate that will last the test of time is how do you compare Scottish and English football? Like, would Hibs cut it in League One, for example, right? For you, just point blank, when you went down to Rotherham, what was the first thing you thought, oh, this is different?
The thing I noticed was different, and I'm sure most players will tell you this, there's so many teams down there, so up here you kind of play the same teams all the time. I know you need to play them, but one day you could be in London, next day you could be up, somewhere else in England, and then you're away again. So for me, it opened my eyes up to kind of a different stadiums, different players, and just kind of I don't mean the buzz of English football, but it was new for me. Again, a boy coming up from East End of Glasgow to then be down south playing. What I did notice is the change rooms are different. Boys are different down there to up here, and no, without slaughtering people, like they just come in, done a job and away again, which is fine. But in Scotland, I always feel
very much professional footballers to the definition.
Aye. A lot. Listen, some of them. I remember, for example, we got promoted at Wembley. I'd been on loan, but we got promoted at Wembley, and you'd think there would be a big party, but kind of died to death at 9-10 o'clock, whereas in Scotland, boys would be
Curfew.
there'd be 2-3 days of celebrating, which for me is right, because you've just achieved something. You know, they got promoted from League One to the Championship. Should be celebrating it, and they didn't. And it's just wee things like that, and I thought it's definitely different down here. But listen, I enjoyed my time doing it. I didn't actually enjoy my time. That's a lie. If truth be told, I had a few options when I ended up got to Rotherham, and I kind of knew early doors that it wasn't really going to work for me for different reasons. I'll touch on it another time, yeah. But
in the Newton Arms, aye.
And the Newton Arms, the local. But no, listen, loved my spell down there. I ended up going on loan to Ross County, as I say, and I had another loan spell at Oldham, and I started to enjoy my football again. But listen, I wouldn't change it. Again, my only regret is I had a couple of options down south, and I kind of went to Rotherham for the manager and different things, and he was Scottish.
Who was the manager?
Steve Evans.
The big guy.
But listen, it didn't really work for whatever reason. I had my loan spells, loved my football when I went up to Ross County, enjoyed it when I went to Oldham, and then obviously back up the road after a couple of years. But again, it was good times. I had my oldest son down there as well, 10 years ago yesterday, believe it or not. You know, I was settled and stuff like that. I enjoyed the environment. I enjoyed being away from Glasgow.
Yeah.
It was nice coming up and seeing family and my pals and all that stuff. But no, it was probably at a stage in my life where I was comfortable, as I say, bought a house, you know, was enjoying my life down there. But like anything, you know, it can be, I had to come back. I didn't have to come back up road, but I chose to come back to start playing football again and enjoying it.
I'm enjoying my couple of hours away from Glasgow, I'll tell you that much. It's nice here though, do you know, everything's all together, and it's actually a really nice setup here for a relatively new club.
Well, this has been built up here since I came, God, nearly 4 and a bit, maybe 5 years now.
Yeah, you were 2020, aye.
The club's kind of built itself up on the park, off the park, which is nice to see. And to be fair, when I did sign, Dean McKenzie at the time said that he wanted the club to grow, and it's easy saying it, but you know, they kind of we backed up on the park, and then the club backed up off the park. And the important thing is, you know, we're a League One team, and that's where they want to get to, and then it's about stabilising it and seeing where we can go after that.
The common consensus about loan spells is that they are just straightforward. You go out, you get game time, you get experience, and you come back a better player. I want to ask about how different were your Ross County and your Oldham spells? Like, what were the unique things that you came away with either of them from?
Well, my first spell going up to Ross County was I knew Ross County were interested. There was a few teams interested. I think Motherwell at the time, Stuart McCall, Ross County, Partick Thistle, who had pipped us that year, and Callan Archibald was still the manager. Was it Archie? Maybe Archie or Jackie McNamara. I'm not sure who it was. I think it was Archie. And I actually wanted to go to Thistle at the time, purely because at the time my partner was pregnant and I wanted to come back to Glasgow. But the manager, Steve Evans, the character, he said, "Nope, you're going to Ross County," just like that sort of thing. I didn't have a choice, which was fine. Again, it was a lovely part of Scotland. I went up there. My partner stayed down here at the time, in Glasgow at the time, as I say, pregnant, kind of a travelling up and down. But do you know what it let me do? It let me just focus purely on my football. I ended up staying in Dingwall, which is 2 men in a dugout stay there. But me and Stuart Kettlewell, actually, funnily enough, stayed across the road for each other. So we would kind of kick about at night, get a couple of games of pool, and I loved it. And then there was pressure because it was SPL and I hadn't played SPL at the time. So again, that was new to me. And I think when I went to January, I think there was like 16 games to go, and we were lingering down. It wasn't the playoffs at the time, it was straight down. No, sorry, it was the playoffs. It was because I think we beat Dundee United on the Saturday, the Tuesday. Oh, sorry, who did we beat? I can't remember. I think we drew with Aberdeen, beat Dundee United, and then we needed a point against Hibs. I think we beat them, and that kept us up in the SPL, which was a massive achievement for the club. They're still kind of doing the same thing now, and again, small town, hard to attract players because of the location.
A brutal away day, right enough.
And we made it really difficult, and I enjoyed it. Derek Adams was great to me. You know, as I say, I was there for 16 games, and I played 15 of them, started 15 of them. I got injured the kind of my last game, but we were safe, and I just enjoyed it. It was a good club, good environment, and as I say, I felt like I helped contribute towards that. I wasn't amazing, but I done my job, and you know, we stayed in the division, which was the most important thing.
What about Oldham then? What was the situation? That
was slightly different. So I went back to Rotherham, and I actually started that pre-season really well. They'd signed a big cut Broadfoot signed. I'm trying to think. Scott Shearer was still there, another Scottish boy, goalkeeper. And I started, what I'd done was I got myself really fit, like probably the best shape I'd ever been in the off season. I went, because again, going back to, I wanted to prove a point. I didn't want my career to just be like that, been and gone. And I started really well, pre-season flying, doing really well in the games. In the first game of the season, Derby County away, in the Championship, this was, and he told me I was playing. Well, the team was shaped up on the Friday that I was playing. Travelled down, stayed in Derby, and then on the bus they told me I wasn't playing, just as we were getting off. No, just before, I can't remember, just before we done a team meeting or something like that. Told me I wasn't playing, so again I was deflated. But I thought, do you know what? Keep my head down, just got on with it. I think we got beat 1-0. Jeff Henrik scored, and then on the Tuesday we went to the Tuesday we played Watford. I came off the bench and I thought, right, okay. And then the following week we played Swansea down there. I think it was a Carabao Cup or something like that. And after 56 minutes I got took off, and I knew that was it. My time was up. For whatever reason, there was always a big turnover at Rotherham, and I think like the next day, and this isn't an exaggeration, you could probably check this, I think there was like 4 players signed the next day, so 3 of them were centre midfielders. So I think that made 8 centre midfielders, and I thought, well, they're definitely down the pit order now. So what had happened was Lee Johnson was the manager at Oldham at the time. He kind of inquired, and we kind of had done a swap deal with Boyd Johnson, Clark Harris, something like that. I can't really remember how it worked. And then when I went to Oldham again, I really enjoyed it. I travelled Sheffield over to Manchester. Great bunch of lads. Really enjoyed my time there. Again, a bit like Ross County. We were League One at the time though, but I enjoyed it. I think I didn't play all the time, but I played a lot of games. And then when I'm back to Rotherham, that was in the January, and my time was up. They kind of just says, look, you're not going to play here. 2 options: you either sit about or you go and try and find another club. So we just agreed that I'd move on, which again hurt me at the time, because I felt not that I wasn't given an opportunity. You're always given opportunities, but just at the time it was, as I said to you, I touched on it earlier on, it's probably the wrong club for me personally. For me, for whatever reasons, I'll not get into it, but. No, it was a great club. It was a great club, great boys. I love staying in Sheffield, as I said, but just certain individuals just kind of made life really difficult. Not just for me, for everybody, but that's another story for another day.
You said you had to come back up to Scottish football. You came back up to very familiar settings in sunny Greenock. We were speaking before this as well. I had a slight error here on my questions, believe it or not. You had a very unique situation. It was a situation that was spoken about a wee bit with Owen Beck maybe coming up to Celtic, or even that Ola Solbakken boy as well. I think there was another one like that with him. Tell us about what went on then at Morton at that point.
So, excuse me, because genuinely on my kid's life to this day, I didn't know the rule. So the rule was, if you played for 2 teams, which was, I'd played for Rotherham, as I said, a couple of sub appearances and then the cup game, and then I'd played for Oldham, 15, 16 games, and then I came back up to Morton in January. So I signed a deal, 2.5 year deal, doing League One at the time, and then the girl Gillian, who was the secretary at the time, had signed it, and then like 5 years later she'd phoned me. I thought she'd maybe just other paperwork or something. She's like, do you know we've made a mistake? And I was like, I've not got a clue what to talk about. And she's like, you can't play. And I went, would you? Because I think it was a Thursday maybe I signed, and there was a game the next day against Dunfermline, and it was Morton and Dunfermline were gone for League One at the time. And I went, I can't play tomorrow. I says, I genuinely thought this is the registration no through. Not that I thought I was going to be playing, but I was maybe part of the squad. And she's like, no, you can't play till next season. And I was like, that's a wind up, do you know what I mean? I was like, what do you mean? She's like, UEFA rules, you can only play for 2 clubs in 1 season. See the amount of texts I got and phone calls, people saying, pull a fly one. I would never do that. Morton was brilliant for me. They helped me try and get my move. Well, they helped me get my move down south, as I said, with Murray and Niall and stuff like that. And the old chairman was brilliant with me, really looked after me, and he was true to his word. If a bid came in, he would let me go, he wouldn't stand in my way. And to be fair, the bid did come in, and he tried to stand in my way for a couple of days, but then eventually I remember speaking to him. I said, look, it's a great opportunity for me. So again, the club were great for me. I always had a good relationship with the fans as well, so to then get that news was difficult. And I told this story the other day actually. So for me, I think it was the game against Watford I came on, and I remember, I think it was Troy Deeney I was marking for a corner on the Saturday, to the following Tuesday, something like that, or the 2 weeks later, I was then playing under 18s football, because you could play an overage player. I was doing it at Somerset, playing with 15 and 16 year olds, and I did not have a clue that was going to happen. So it just shows you how football happens. And Andy Millen was the manager. They kind of I think it was the 20s, but there was a lot of kids, good kids by the way. Katongo, Tiffany, Rhys Lyon, Lewis McGrattan. And again, I probably helped them then as well. Do you know what I mean? Being on the park, albeit I was 25, 26 at the time. So starts contrast of playing the Championship in England to 2 weeks later playing for Morton under 20s. But to answer your original question, I didn't know the rule. Ironically, Steve Evans actually got wind of it, and he said he phoned me if they're not being so nice. He phoned me and says that we could try and sign you back and put you back on loan, but I don't think that would have worked either, because if I'd signed for I don't even know what had happened. So anyway, moral of the story is I had to sit out for 6 months. But in fairness to that, Morton then went on, won the league. Jim Duffy at the time, brilliant. Duff's a great guy, I'll touch on him as well. But the boys went on, won the league, which was brilliant for them. And then obviously when I came back the following season, the club was a Championship club again. So, went the full circle. But, something that, as I said, I didn't know was going to be the case. But as you say, it's happened to a few other players, so I'm glad it wasn't just me.
There's always an error in Scottish football, isn't there? There's always a wee clerical error, always something. I mean, a couple of weeks ago it was Partick Thistle and Motherwell, screenshot, just something like that, that's...
I think human error does happen though, do you know what I mean?
But it's always bloody up here, isn't it?
I know. So it was a difficult time for me, but I just got my head down, try to help the younger lads as much as possible, and majority of them have went on to have good careers as well. Andy Millen was great as well. He was always a experienced lending hand, and would give me wee bits of advice, because you could tell I was down at the time as well. And Duff was great with us as well. The manager was excellent in terms of just keep me on board with the first team as well, because ultimately I couldn't play on a Saturday, so I'd sometimes need to go through and train with the 20s, which was difficult. But listen, it is what it is, and it was just a mistake. And I say a mistake on my part, and I'll try and take accountability. I always try and do it. I didn't know the rule. I genuinely didn't know the rule. So if that was the case, I'd have just stayed at Rotherham, because as I said, I was settled. I just had my wee boy. I had a house down there. I'd have just sat it out until the summer. But listen, these things happen and we move on.
You did have a very brief stint at Falkirk. How come it was a very brief stint?
You tell me. Nah, I'm kidding. So what had happened was Ray McKinnon came in as Morton manager, and I didn't know Ray, to be fair, beforehand. Him and Darren Taylor, who was Daz Taylor, great guy, but they came into Morton, and we started the season really positively. I think we won the first 4 or 5 games, but then Morton came in for him. Falkirk came in for Ray. And he went, to be fair to him, for whatever reasons. I know the reasons, but again, it's by the by now. And he moved on. And I remember at the time I was gutted, to be fair, because I built up a good relationship with him, and we started the season really well. So what had happened was, as soon as he left, he'd phoned me, and he knew it was the last year of my contract, and he's like, I really want to sign you, sort of thing. I think Falkirk were League One. Well, they were League One at the time, because obviously I've just got it last year. So that was kind of ongoing for ages. And at the time, at Morton, it was strange at the time. So JJ became manager and Housty assistant. Again, two of them are brilliant. I had a really good relationship with him as well. And I don't know if you remember, but there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes at Morton, and I'll never forget it. We were walking. It was me. There was a couple of boys getting out. We were playing Dundee United. And it was potentially my last game. No, what had happened was I'd signed with... I can't remember what had happened. I think I signed a deal with Falkirk in January, but I had a wee clause in it that if they went down... The Falkirk win a championship... I'm getting myself confused. Falkirk win a championship was with Morton, but I signed a deal in January, because there was a lot of stuff going on at Morton, and I thought the club had changed a lot for whatever reason, and I thought, I could be doing with a fresh start, and... But I had a wee clause in my contract. If Falkirk went down to League One, I was a free agent sort of thing. So what that, ironically, second last day of the season, we go to Falkirk with Morton. I'm playing for Morton, and I was always going to give it my all. Always. It was weird, because I'd signed a 2-year deal there, and it was strange, because I thought if they go down, then I'm not gone. I know that I'm not gone, but I'm free to kind of do whatever. But do you know what? See, that day I gave it absolutely everything. I think we Charlie Telfer scored. I think we beat them 1 or 2-0 there. I think it relegated them that day, which was. But listen, I didn't really care. I wanted to do as well as I could for Morton. As I said, Charlie, I've always been professional. And I was buzzing that I think we were kind of fighting out with them, and we stayed up. And so then, that wee story I was got to tell you there. When I said there was a lot of things going on behind the scenes, JJ, it was the last day of the season. We were playing Dundee United, but it was nothing to play for because we were kind of a safe. And I think Dundee United were in the playoffs or whatever. And as I was walking into Caplow for the game, like 1:20, JJ and Houston were walking kind of up the corridor, and they pulled me and they're like, "We're away." I know. I was like, "Are we where?" And they're like, "That's us done." And I was like, "What?" I was like, "What?" I'd never experienced it like that in my life. And it was me, Jim McAllister, and me, Midge Miller. We were kind of the 3 older experienced ones. And I can't remember who pulled us. I think it was maybe the chairman or somebody pulled us and says, "You're going to take your team today." So stuff like that. And I thought, this isn't right. Because, long story short, they got told not to play a player. Otherwise, the player's new contract kicked in. Nonsense. Stuff that happens behind the scenes that you probably don't know from the outside. But it happens all over Scottish football, English football. And I remember me, Midge and Jim having a conversation, who would start, who would stand outside to it, and I says, "Look, I want to play." Again, I love playing anyway. And I knew it was potentially my last game there, and I'd played something like 300 games there, and I ended up scoring that day. I ended up scoring a free kick. We beat them 1-0, and then that was it. And then David Hopkins came in. And to be fair to Hoppy, I knew Hoppy before because he took the 20s for a wee bit, and he'd phoned me in the off season. He wanted to sign me, and they'd offered me like a 2-year with a testimonial because I'd done 8 years over the 2 spells, and the 2 years over took me to 10. But then Ray was still on the phone, and I spoke to Partick Thistle again, and I can't remember, Ian McCall at United maybe. So I had a few options, and I'll be honest with you now. I went to Falkirk for Ray, and I thought size of the club,
So come straight back up.
Yeah, straight back up. I thought massive chance. I knew the players were trying to sign, and then it just didn't work. It just didn't work for one reason or another.
The fact that then you started managing Kelty Hearts in the same league that Falkirk were in, and they were still there. It was the same tenure.
To be with Falkirk last season, sorry, I was getting abuse. I don't know why. It just didn't work out. It didn't. There was always I always felt there was an overhang with the Falkirk fans because they were in League One, which is fine, but it wasn't the new players' fault. Do you know what I mean? We were trying our hardest, and I did. I worked hard every day. Performance-wise, I was up and down at the time, but I think we all were. And then obviously, Ray got the sack, and the club it was just unstable. And now looking for outside as a manager, it was just unstable. There was a lot of things going on behind the scenes, and all that makes a difference for players on the part. And fans will always say that you need to perform, and that's true. But you see it. Rangers now got to Hampden, and there's not just a club like Falkirk, and there's expectation there. And see, to be fair, and I genuinely mean this, I'm glad to see them up. I really am, because I had no ill feeling towards Falkirk at all.
He's listening to this, Falkirk supporters.
It just didn't work out for me at the time, and a lot of good players it just didn't work out for. And obviously, I was speaking to John McGinn last season, really happy to see them going up, and they're a brilliant team. And I watched them last week, and you see the fans coming out in their numbers, and I had nothing but good times there, but it just didn't work out for whatever reason. But so yeah, that was my spell at Falkirk, and then David McCracken took over, him and Lee Miller, and then I think at the time the club were trying to get rid of a few for finances, and I was one of the ones that kind of took the hit, which was fine. Ironically, 5 years later, came to Kelty, and now I'm sitting here doing this as manager. So I genuinely believe everything happens for a reason.
You joined when they were still in the Lowland League, but they were very much knocking on the door, weren't they? They'd won. They'd been given the title in the way that Celtic were given 9 in a row after the points per game basis, and then that was their second consecutive, or the year after was the second consecutive, and then eventually
so I played the first one as well.
Aye.
I played in the first one. That was COVID. That was strange because nobody knew what was happening, sort of thing, where our teams were going up. And again, touching on Falkirk, Rafe Rovers got put up a year, and I think they were maybe a point or two above Falkirk.
Aye.
Then I think, was it Thistle got put down, and
Thistle and Hearts, did they not go to court about it and all that?
See, for me,
really messy.
It was messy, and again, I felt for Falkirk because a lot of my pals were still there, and I wanted to see the club do well. So at that time, for me, it was strange as well, coming in here, COVID, we had to be separated, we didn't know if the games
There's not a lot of space to socially distance in here. I think
we actually used
right
that lounge there, we actually used that when Fergie and Big Bob were here. But again, we won the league points thing. I'm sure Bonnie weren't happy at the time, but then we backed it up the following year. And we had to go and play the playoff against Breton. Not the following year, it was like a few months after it. And we weren't sure we were going to get it. And we eventually got it, and luckily we won that game over the two ties, and we're now an SPFL club, which was brilliant for the club and the lads.
What was it like though, dropping for the SPFL into the Lowland League? Because I mean, David Proctor at Cumbernauld was my first ever interview on this. I think I've had 2, 3 now. I even went to Trinent and did their director of football. He's actually now taking the team temporarily because Ian Little's left. What was that like though? As a player, I did my homework, and if there's one thing, and that's what I say to everybody, if there's one thing this podcast has done for me, it's not that I didn't like the lower leagues, but even like when I'm in work, I put open all mics on because I want to hear what's going on up at Borough Briggs. I want to know what's going on in Dumbarton.
That's good. I'm obsessed with football. I still do it now. I check everybody's team, who's played, who's scored, who's done well. That's football. That's just.
If I was a gambler as well, that would be even better. But I'm not, so I don't condone it.
So it was a question. What was the difference?
What was it like dropping from League One into the Lowland League? Where was your thought process as well? What was your motives for doing it?
That's a good question. At the time, I'd spoke to a few clubs in League One to kind of stay there. And to be fair, for all I say, I knew a lot about football. I didn't know a hell of a lot about the Lowland League at the time. Obviously, I knew Fergie was here, and I knew a few of the players that here. They'd signed really well. And then when I spoke to a few clubs, and genuinely people always say, "Oh, he's went to Kelty for money and blah, 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 blah." I was getting offered the same amount to stay in the leagues as well. My main drive to come here, and I mean this, was, and even though I grew up hating him in terms of Barry Ferguson, being a Celtic fan, it was genuinely to work with him and Big Bob, and to try and achieve something, because I'd went through, I don't know, a good 10, 12 years of my career, and I hadn't achieved it. And in terms of, regardless whether you're playing out of the back garden, you want to win, do you know what I mean? And that was always my mantra. I wanted to try and win and achieve something. And then when I signed, the difference in terms of, obviously the quality is different, there's no doubt about it, but we had a really strong team. We were the team for everybody to beat. At the time there was Dylan Easton was here, myself, Tam Riley, but again pressure comes on with that, and obviously Fergie being at the helm of that, that brought its own kind of a nonsense as well at the time. People want to beat him for who he was, ex-Rangers, ex-Scotland captain, brilliant career. So I loved it, I relished it. So to then kind of get the chance to go up to Breton and get the chance to a wee shot to get out of the leagues, it was just a really good time. And then obviously he moved on and Kevin Thompson came in.
Aye. I want to ask, and whether we giggle about this before as well, so Andy Barrowman and John Potter of course moved on to Wraith, and they've not really looked back, have they? What then, and well, you were almost part of the new regime. I feel like you came in as manager when they left and new guys came in at the helm. What have been the significant differences or things that have been done different really since they've left? How's the club been operating now?
The club's fine. The club's absolutely fine. Steph and Tiger, who kind of took over that side of the kind of a business side, as well as George and Gus and Stuart Morton. There's a real nucleus of good people who have been here, by the way, and I said this to the lads a couple of weeks ago when I kind of had a wee meeting. These boys pre-season, when I went, these guys here who work behind the scenes, and bear in mind I've been here the longest out of the kind of a playing squad and kind of a staff. They're the backbone of the club. They love this club, and they give it their all. Whether it's staff things, whether it's cleaning up, whether it's sandwiches, whether it's all the things that players probably take for granted, I try to emphasise to the lads the importance of them, and just being nice and talking. And this club, when I first came here, this club was it was a brilliant club. It still is a brilliant club. What I mean is there was always that family feel. It's a small town, Kelty, so to watch it kind of grow over the 4 or 5 year period I've been here, it's all down to the people behind the scenes. Obviously there was a turnover when Dean and Barra and Potsy left, and opened the door for me, to be fair. One that I wasn't expecting. I was genuinely trying to find out where my next club would be if it wasn't going to be here, sort of thing. So when that door opened up, I wanted to keep that kind of a feel-good factor about the place. Because again, and I touch on this, people forget we've only been in the league for 2 years. In this league for 2 years, obviously come up for League 2. But we're a relatively new club to the SPFL, and I just wanted to keep driving that and, you know, try and do the right. And the guys behind the scenes, listen, they work ever so hard, I promise you that, as well as we do on the park. They give it their all to try and make this club better, and as long as I'm here, that's all I'll do. I'll keep trying to drive standards on the park and help as much as I can off it in terms of the finances and how it works within, like, daft things, like the things that I wasn't aware of as a player, like budgets and understanding how things work behind the scenes, season ticket sales, shirt sales, all these wee small things. Teams in the league, for example, in Dunfermline in the league and Falkirk in the league, they bring big crowds when they go, you know, stuff like that. That's the other side that I've learned over the past year and a bit. But listen, this club, well, as long as I've been here, it's been brilliant. And I just want to keep that going, keep that momentum going, and hopefully finish. Well, this season just started, but you know, last season it was a good start to the season. We started off really well, consolidated ourselves in the league, had a wee sniff to the playoffs, which sometimes can exceed expectations, and you know, people started.
Everybody gets their own wee kind of sniff at it. Well, it's a small division, like, which is the great thing about it. I think is League One potentially the most open now out of them, because you've got the two big boys out in Falkirk and Hamilton. I'm backing Stuart Petrie to do it, but maybe you can convince me in the next however long we've got left.
Well, there you go. You use Stuart Petrie, for example, in Montrose. These clubs have been about this division for years. Arlo has been thereabouts. There's a few new teams. Arbroath have been thereabouts in the SPL a couple of years ago. Obviously, Inverness. It's a really difficult league. So for us, the most important thing is, for me, whether it's negative or no, you need to consolidate yourself. Obviously, my standards, I know going into it too much in terms of in there, what I say to my players. Obviously, I want to keep driving the club and try to get better and make the club better and better and better. But that doesn't happen overnight. That takes time. And for us, it's just about keep the momentum going each week, each month. As I said, keep on top of the players and standards and how they are on the park, off the park, round about the place. That's the way I always was. That's the way I've tried to live my career. I know players are different, but that'll kind of continue as long as I'm still in the building.
Did you think they were bamming you up when they asked you to do
it? No, because the people who spoke to me, you know, I knew it wouldn't be. And the funny thing is, I wasn't. I'd never really thought about it. As I said, I was 33 at the time when I got the job, or 34, sorry. Was I 34, 33, 34? It's still young, and I want to try and play as long as I can. However long that is, I don't know. But just my love for the game, I probably think that they'd seen, without blowing smoke up my own arse, but probably how I was about the place, from the lower league up to League One, do you know what I mean? In terms of I was a captain as well, so that probably had an influence on it as well. And you know, we had some strong characters there, and I remember Tom always saying that to me, that, and again, we didn't touch on Tom. Tom was brilliant for me when he was here, really good, you know, top guy, top coach. Just a shame that he's probably not got back in the game, but I'm sure that'll happen over time. And Geordie, who's my assistant now, who was Tom's assistant at the time, you know, they two, I felt like, took the club again for League 2 into League 1. You know, we set the standards, we were flying in League 2. What was I saying there? Something about in terms of getting a job.
Aye.
In terms of how they seen it. Listen, I don't know how people perceive you. You could walk away and think he's this or that, or he's. Do you know what I mean? Everybody makes perception of people and how they are. So again, I just always try to, when I come in here on a Tuesday and a Thursday, train as hard as I possibly could. Again, set the standards for the younger ones. There was times in there, you use me and wee Higgy, Callum Higginbottom, we used to fight all the time, constantly fight, but it was for the right reasons, because we wanted to keep driving it. Me and Joe Cardo would have our bickers, me and Dougie Hull, but these were boys who have had brilliant careers and realised what it took, and I always felt that dragged the so-called quieter ones, or your Alfredo Agamans, who's went to Falkirk and done well. I remember we Andy Black came in, done really well for the club. But there was loads of players that I feel that we helped. So whether the club's seen that for us kind of older players at the time, maybe that's what made them kind of offer me the job. And you know, it was something that I touched on this right at the start. It was something that I probably couldn't have turned down at this stage of my career. My only kind of was I going to continue playing? And as I said, I love the game too much. So as long as I can still contribute on the park, I'll play. But in terms of the management side, I do enjoy it. I love it. And listen, I just love football. As long as I can stay in football at any capacity, I'll just always try and do my best.
Well, I feel like we have been here forever, and I feel like we could go on forever, but of course I don't want to take it away. You've got a training session. As I like to do, I do like to get the supporters involved as much as I can, because of course, what are we here for if we're not for them? I normally like to go into the forum websites and see if they've got anything. I'll tread through all the shit in the forum. I'll tell you about one after this, right enough, because I probably shouldn't have said it here, but the Kelty Hearts forum isn't maybe quite as active as all the other ones are, but somebody wanted to know if we'd see Adam Corbett back this year.
Adam Corbett, yes, we will see him back. He's just got, that's been, I think it's a good 6 months he's been out. He's having a problem. He's kind of a pubic area, groins and pubic, and I've been there myself. I've had a double hernia operation before, and you know, sometimes these injuries can take a wee bit of time to recover. But he's been given the news that he's probably another 3-4 weeks away for, you know, contact training and getting himself moving again. So yeah, Adam will definitely be back, and you know, we'll welcome him to the squad because he's a good player and probably missed him for spells.
Well, I like to ask everybody the same question at the end, and it's if we were to come back here a year from now, sit right here, the whiskey will still be out there, and if I was to ask you, see, since last time we spoke, have you done a good job? And you tell me, aye, Charlie, I have. So really, what in a year's time from now is a good job done for you? A
good job done for me is, as I said to you, recognising where we are as a club. Never get above your station, because football's got a habit of biting you right in the arse when you're least expecting it. But for me, again, I've touched on it, negative or whatever way you want to look at it, keep consolidating yourself in the league, keep trying to get better than you did last season. Last season we finished, I think the first season 8th, last season 6th. Can we be there or thereabouts? Again, I'm under no illusions. I know how difficult this league is. I think the league will be tighter this year because, as you say, you've no DUNFERMLINE, you've no Falkirk, no Hamilton.
But you've got a big fray of other big clubs that will just be, it'll be a dogfight at the top.
It'll be a dogfight. I think teams will take points off each other more this season. Whoever wins the league, I don't think it'll be the points that have maybe won it over the last couple of years. So that makes it for interesting reading. And you know, if we can be run about any sort of pack, and you know, listen, I don't really look at other teams. I always try and focus on us. And what you can't. Other teams, they'll take care of their own campaign. We just need to look after ourselves, do our bit, and you know, hope for a year's time, if we want to have another chat, we've been positive in our season and we've grown as a club, because I said that I wanted it, when I got the manager job, I wanted it to be a journey. Hopefully I can, you know, lead that, and you know, the players get them on board and keep trying to drive the standards and the club forward as much as we can. So
very much I control what you can control, then. Is that the mantra we're going to go for?
Control the controllables, that's the one, mate.
That's it. Well, listen, it's been an absolute pleasure. It's been a pleasure just to hear a Glaswegian accent here at Fife, because, as I said before, my dad is from Methil, so I've had 19 years of turmoil coming through and feeling like an outsider just for my accent. I was even slagged off for it once, and I thought that's when the world has hit a new low. As I say, I've also been eyeing up those spirits over there, but I'll not get my... Anyway, Michael, it's been an absolute pleasure from one Glasgow boy to another. It's been fantastic.